Regret is one of the most powerful emotional experiences we face in life. And in old age, it often resurfaces with even greater clarity and weight. As we get older, we have more time to reflect, more memories to sort through, and more opportunities to confront the choices we made or didn't make. Regret can feel like a quiet companion, sitting in the background of our minds, whispering reminders of what could have been. But what if regret doesn't have to be a tormentor? What if instead we can learn to see regret as a teacher, as a map pointing us toward wisdom, healing, and peace in our later years? The truth is, regret is not just about the past. It's deeply connected to the present. It reveals what we still value, what we still long for, and what we wish we could change. And while we can't go back in time, we can absolutely change the way we interpret those regrets. We can reshape their meaning and use them to enrich the life we still have left to live. The first step in rethinking regret in old age is to understand what regret really is. At its core, regret is a mismatch between our past actions and our current values. It happens when we look back on a decision or event and realize that, with the knowledge or perspective we now have, we would have chosen differently. That realization can lead to sadness, guilt, or shame, but it can also be a sign of growth. The very fact that we regret something means we've evolved. We've learned something important. We've become wiser, and that wisdom has value. Instead of letting regret pull us into a spiral of self-blame, we can use it as evidence that we are still thinking, still growing, and still capable of change. Rethinking regret also requires self-compassion. Too often, people are far harsher on themselves than they would ever be on someone else. We judge our younger selves as if they should have known everything we know now. But the reality is, they didn't. They were working with a different set of tools, experiences, and emotional maturity. When you were 20, 30, 40, you made choices based on what you understood at the time. And maybe some of those choices didn't turn out the way you hoped. Punishing yourself for not knowing than what you know now isn't fair. It's like blaming a student for not having a professor's knowledge. Give yourself the same grace you would give a friend. Remind yourself that you were learning, you were growing, and that learning curve is a natural part of being human. Another powerful way to rethink regret is by talking about it. In our culture, there's often an unspoken rule that older adults are supposed to have all the answers. We're supposed to be wise, grounded, and above all, certain. But the truth is, everyone struggles with doubt. Everyone has moments they wish they could take back. And when we bottle up those feelings, they don't go away. They just sit silently and weigh us down. Sharing your regrets with someone you trust, a friend, a partner, a therapist, or even in a journal, can be incredibly liberating. It allows you to release the emotional energy you've been holding inside. It turns regret from a private burden into a shared human experience. And in some cases, it can even help others learn from your story, giving your regret a new and meaningful purpose. It's also helpful to reframe regret as a clue to what matters most to you. Think about the things you regret. Are they related to relationships you neglected, opportunities you passed up, risks you were too afraid to take? Those regrets are not just about mistakes, they're about your values. They reveal what you care about deeply, and once you identify those values, you can use them to guide your life now. If you regret not spending more time with your children, maybe you can prioritize connection with them today. If you regret not traveling more, maybe you can explore new places through books, virtual experiences, or short local trips. The point is, regret doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter, one that aligns more closely with your deepest values. Another key element in rethinking regret is to recognize the unintended benefits that may have come from your so-called mistakes. Life is not linear. Often the decisions we regret most led us down paths we didn't expect, but that ultimately shaped who we became. Maybe you regret ending a relationship, but that decision made space for you to grow in ways you never imagined. Maybe you regret leaving a job, but it led you to discover a hidden talent or new passion. These outcomes don't erase the regret, but they do add complexity to the story. They remind us that life is made up of interwoven moments, some painful, some joyful, and that even our regrets may have contributed to something beautiful in the long run. In old age, it's also essential to adopt a legacy mindset. You may not be able to rewrite the past, but you absolutely have control over the legacy you leave behind. Your regrets can be a compass, pointing you toward the kind of impact you want to make now. What do you want your children, grandchildren, or community to learn from your life? What wisdom can you pass on that might help someone else avoid the same regrets? When you use your experiences to help others, you give your pain purpose, and that purpose can be profoundly healing. Another way to rethink regret is to reclaim your narrative. Too often, people define their lives by their biggest regrets. I'm the one who never finished school, or I'm the one who got divorced, or I'm the one who made that bad investment. But those moments are not your whole story. They're chapters, maybe difficult ones, but they're not the entire book. You are more than your mistakes. You are also your resilience, your love, your kindness, your laughter, your lessons learned. Take back control of your narrative. Don't let regret be the title of your life. Let it be a paragraph in a much larger, richer, and more nuanced story. One of the most freeing realizations in old age is that it's never too late to grow. You may not be able to undo certain things, but you can always choose how you respond to them now. You can always decide to live differently going forward, whether that means healing a broken relationship, picking up a long-lost hobby, expressing long-held emotions, or simply changing your outlook. Every day offers a new opportunity. You are not stuck. As long as you're breathing, you have the power to create, to forgive, to connect, and to evolve. And finally, embracing a spiritual or philosophical perspective can be deeply helpful in rethinking regret. Many traditions teach that suffering and mistakes are an essential part of the human journey. They are not signs of failure, but invitations to deeper awareness and compassion. If you believe in a higher power, you may find comfort in the idea that your life has unfolded according to a plan greater than your own understanding. If you're more secular, you might take solace in the idea that every experience, even the painful ones, contributes to your personal evolution. Either way, the key is to step back and see your life in a broader context, to recognize that you are not alone in your regret, and that in many ways your experience is profoundly and beautifully human. So let's return to that original question. How do you rethink regret in old age? You start by remembering that regret is not your enemy. It's a sign that you've grown. It's a signal that you still care. It's a window into your values, and it's a doorway to wisdom. You meet it with compassion, curiosity, and courage. You speak it out loud. You learn from it. You teach from it. And above all, you refuse to let it define you. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are a living, breathing story still being written. And as long as there's ink in the pen, you have the power to shape what comes next. Rethinking regret in old age is not about eliminating regret entirely. It's about transforming it into a resource for wisdom, clarity, and direction. Once we begin to see regret through the lens of growth, it becomes something we can engage with rather than something we need to avoid. We begin to understand that even though we cannot change the past, we can change the power the past holds over us. In many ways, this transformation starts with the ability to shift from emotional reactivity to reflective awareness. Instead of being consumed by feelings of guilt, sorrow, or what-ifs, we can pause and observe regret with curiosity. Why does this particular memory still affect me? What value does it reveal? What unmet need does it reflect? By asking these questions, we start to build a bridge from regret to self-knowledge. As older adults, we carry not just our memories, but the emotional weight of decades. Some of that weight is light, moments of joy, laughter, love. But some of it is heavier, missed chances, broken promises, unspoken words. And yet one of the most empowering truths is that this emotional inventory, heavy or light, is entirely yours. That means you have the agency to reinterpret it. Emotional memory is not fixed, it's dynamic. You can return to a painful memory and view it from a new angle, informed by the maturity, depth, and empathy you've developed over time. The moment you begin to shift from "I messed up" to "I did what I knew how to do back then," the healing begins. It's not about rewriting history, it's about understanding it more completely. A key part of this process is rewriting your internal dialogue. We all carry inner narratives that shape how we see ourselves. These narratives are often formed early in life and become deeply ingrained. If your internal story sounds like, "I always screw up," "I never follow through," or "I'm not good enough," then regret will naturally reinforce those beliefs. But if you actively rewrite those narratives with more compassionate and truthful language, like, "I've made mistakes, but I've grown from them," or "I didn't know then what I know now," you begin to loosen the grip regret has on your identity. You start to reclaim your sense of self not as someone who failed, but as someone who is constantly evolving. Let's also acknowledge that not all regrets carry the same emotional weight. Some are surface level, regretting buying a car you didn't need or spending too much on a vacation. But others are soul deep, regretting a divorce, abandoning a dream, or not reconciling with a parent before their death. These deeper regrets require more than logic. They require heart work. They ask you to engage in emotional and sometimes spiritual reflection. And while they may never be resolved in the traditional sense, they can be softened, integrated, and even honored. In fact, honoring a regret means recognizing its place in your journey without letting it define your future. One practice that helps with this integration is narrative therapy. This involves writing out your regrets in detail, not just what happened, but what you felt, what you feared, what you needed, and what you learned. When we write our experiences out like a story, we create space between ourselves and the event. This allows us to see the complexity of the moment rather than just the outcome. We might realize that we were under pressure, grieving, uninformed, or emotionally overwhelmed. Suddenly, the person we were in that moment seems less like a failure and more like a human being doing their best under tough circumstances. That shift alone can be transformational. Forgiveness remains a central theme in dealing with regret, but self-forgiveness is often the hardest kind to practice. Many older adults carry silent guilt for decades, believing that punishing themselves is a form of penance. But the truth is, shame does not create healing. Compassion does. Self-forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what you did. It means you're choosing to stop hurting yourself for it. It means you understand that you are not the same person you were back then, and that holding on to self-hatred only limits your capacity for love, peace, and joy today. If you find this difficult, consider writing a letter to your younger self. Describe what you know now that you didn't know then. Offer yourself understanding. Let that letter become a bridge between past regret and present healing. Spiritual reflection also plays a powerful role in reframing regret. Many people find peace through faith traditions that emphasize redemption, grace, and purpose. Others find solace in nature, art, music, or philosophical contemplation. Whatever your spiritual language, use it to remind yourself that your worth is not defined by your mistakes. You are not just the sum of your regrets. You are the sum of your resilience, your intentions, and your capacity to love. Engage with practices that nourish your spirit: meditation, prayer, silent walks, deep conversations. These moments create space for clarity, acceptance, and emotional rest. It's equally important to examine how regret influences your current relationships. Unresolved regret can show up as defensiveness, withdrawal, bitterness, or overcompensation. It can prevent you from fully showing up in your connections today. But when you start to process and release regret, you open yourself to deeper intimacy, vulnerability, and joy. Maybe you regret not telling your children how much you love them while they were growing up. That regret can fuel a commitment to tell them now. Maybe you regret not being present in your marriage. That insight can drive you to be more emotionally available in your current relationships. Regret doesn't have to be a wall. It can be a door if you choose to walk through it. As we age, we also gain a unique perspective on time. We understand more than ever that time is finite. This awareness can either paralyze us with fear or motivate us with purpose. If you've spent years carrying the weight of regret, ask yourself, how do I want to spend the rest of my time? What stories do I want to tell? What legacy do I want to leave behind? Regret can be a catalyst for intentional living. It can push you to prioritize what truly matters, to spend time with loved ones, to pursue passions, to speak your truth, to live authentically. It's not too late. It's never too late. Every breath you take is an invitation to create something meaningful. Let's also speak to these societal myths that often surround aging. Our culture tends to idolize youth and view aging as a process of decline. But in reality, older adulthood is a time rich with insight, creativity, and emotional depth. When we internalize negative stereotypes about aging, we risk seeing ourselves as irrelevant or too late to change. That mindset only intensifies regret. But when we embrace aging as a season of wisdom, we begin to see that our regrets don't diminish us, they deepen us. They make us more empathetic, more aware, more present. Aging isn't about fading away, it's about becoming more fully yourself. There's also tremendous power in mentoring others. Sharing your life lessons, including your regrets, with younger generations can be one of the most rewarding aspects of aging. When you speak openly about your past, not from a place of shame, but from a place of learning, you model courage, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. Your stories can become guideposts for others navigating their own choices. You may never know the full impact of your honesty, but rest assured, it matters. Every time you turn regret into wisdom, you break a cycle. You plant seeds. You leave something better behind. Of course, there will be days when regret still hurts. That's okay. You don't need to be at peace all the time to be healing. You don't need to have everything figured out to be growing. Some wounds take time. Some memories still sting. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Even being able to sit with regret without spiraling into despair is a sign of strength. Even being willing to revisit the past with curiosity instead of judgment is a form of courage. Celebrate those moments. They are markers of your transformation. In many ways, regret is like grief. It comes in waves, it demands attention, and it changes over time. But just like grief, it can also bring clarity. It can clarify what we value, who we love, what we need, and how we want to live moving forward. Don't resist regret. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it humble you. Let it guide you toward the person you still have time to become. So where does all this leave us? It leaves us with choice. That's the final, most important truth about regret. You still have a choice. You can let regret define you, or you can let it refine you. You can carry it like a chain, or you can turn it into a compass. You can let it keep you stuck in the past, or you can let it point you toward a richer, deeper present. And perhaps that is the greatest gift of all. Not that we live without regret, but that we learn to live well with it. Understanding how to rethink regret in old age is not just about avoiding sadness or staying mentally strong. It's about transforming the most haunting memories into wisdom, grace, and peace. As we enter the later chapters of life, we often carry invisible bags filled with what ifs, if onlys, and I should have. These mental weights don't have to anchor us to sorrow. In fact, they can become the very tools that carve the path to a deeper, more meaningful life. Regret, when viewed through the right lens, is not the enemy of happiness. It is a potential companion to wisdom. The key is not erasing the past, but reframing it. What we need in old age is not amnesia, but perspective. The goal is not to forget what went wrong, but to understand why it mattered, what it taught, and how it shaped the person we've become. It is never too late to write a new ending to an old story. The first thing we must accept is that regret is universal. There isn't a soul alive who has not wished to undo something, say something differently, or take a different road. Even the most accomplished lives carry moments of failure or missed chances. Accepting the universality of regret allows us to stop isolating ourselves in shame. It brings us into communion with others. You are not alone in your feelings. There's great comfort in knowing that regret connects us to the human story. But to truly rethink regret, we must move beyond acceptance. We must be willing to transform it. That transformation begins when we understand that regret is a mirror, not of our flaws, but of our values. If you regret not spending more time with family, it's because family matters deeply to you. If you regret not taking more risks, it means courage and ambition are essential to your soul. This insight changes the narrative. Regret doesn't just highlight what went wrong, it illuminates what matters most. Use that illumination. Let it guide your remaining years. Make the phone call you never made. Write the letter. Share your wisdom. Start that painting. Regret can be a beginning. Another critical shift in thinking is realizing that regret is often rooted in comparison with an imagined version of ourselves who chose differently. This phantom self, the person we might have become if we had taken another path, haunts our thoughts. But here's the truth. That person doesn't exist. You are not that hypothetical version. You are real, breathing, enduring, and evolving. That imagined life is just that, imagined. It has no details, no struggles, no context. It's an illusion. The life you lived, with all its turns and trials, is the only one that has truly been lived. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are the sum of your courage to keep going despite them. That courage deserves to be honored, not condemned. Rethinking regret also means moving from self-judgment to self-compassion. So many older adults speak to themselves with harsh inner voices. Why did I waste those years? How could I have been so blind? But what would you say to a friend who told you the same story? Would you shame them, or would you hold their hand and say, you did the best you could with what you knew then? Offer that same kindness to yourself. The past is not a courtroom, it's a classroom. Every mistake was a teacher. Every failure was part of the syllabus of your growth. And your older self today is the graduate of that school. You are wiser now, not in spite of your regrets, but because of them. Use that wisdom. Share it. Teach others what you wish you had known. There's nothing more powerful than an elder who has made peace with their past and uses it to illuminate the future for others. There's a particular kind of regret that comes from broken relationships, estranged children, lost friends, or marriages that ended painfully. These wounds run deep, and yet old age offers a surprising window of opportunity. It's a time when many people are more open to healing, to forgiveness, to reconnection. You might think it's too late, that too much time has passed, but time doesn't heal wounds, conversation does. A simple message, an honest apology, a willingness to listen. These small acts can rewrite entire histories. And even if the other person doesn't respond, the act of reaching out can bring peace to your own heart. Regret loses its grip when we take action, however small. Sometimes the deepest regrets are not about what we did, but what we didn't do. The dreams we buried, the talents we ignored, the lives we never dared to pursue. It's tempting to mourn those lost possibilities forever. But here's a radical idea. It's never truly too late to begin again. Maybe you won't run a marathon or start a business at 85, but you can still write, create, speak, serve, and inspire. Passion does not retire. Purpose does not expire. The second half of life, especially in old age, is not a slow fade. It can be a second win. Start small. Take one step. That action, no matter how modest, tells regret, you don't own me anymore. Gratitude is another antidote to regret. It shifts our focus from what's missing to what remains. Gratitude says, I may not have gotten everything right, but I've still been given so much. Start counting the things you're grateful for. The people, the memories, the sunsets, the lessons. Gratitude doesn't erase regret, but it puts it in its place. It reminds us that life is not only made up of mistakes, it is made of miracles too. And often the things we most regret lead to the things we most cherish. Sometimes a job loss leads to discovering a new talent. Sometimes a heartbreak leads to meeting the love of your life. Life is a web of interwoven events. Pull one thread and everything shifts. You don't have to love your regrets, but you can respect their role in the story. You can look back and say, I wouldn't choose that path again, but I respect the person I became because of it. That's maturity. That's wisdom. In old age, there is a beautiful kind of peace that comes from letting go. Not giving up, but letting go of what you cannot change. You don't have to carry every regret to your final days. You can lay some of them down. You can say, I release this. Not because it didn't matter, but because I've learned from it. That's not weakness. That's strength. Regret thrives in silence. It shrinks when spoken. Find someone you trust and share your story. Or write it down. Tell the truth, not just to others, but to yourself. The truth will set you free. And in telling it, you may discover that others carry similar regrets. You are not alone. And when your story helps someone else make peace with their past, your regret becomes a gift. Rethinking regret in old age is not about denial. It's about depth. It's about seeing with wiser eyes. It's about realizing that your value is not determined by your victories or your failures, but by your ability to grow, to forgive, to love. and to live meaningfully even now. If you have breath, you have purpose. If you have time, you have power. And if you have regret, you have the chance to transform it. This is not the end of your story. It is the part where the main character becomes the mentor, the wise soul who looks back not with bitterness, but with clarity and compassion. You have nothing to prove anymore, but you have so much to give. Let your past become the soil from which new wisdom grows. Let your regrets become the compass that points you toward peace. And let your story, every part of it, be a testament not to perfection, but to the power of perspective. You are not too old to heal, you are not too late to matter, and you are not too broken to be whole again. Rethinking regret is not about changing the past. It's about changing how we carry it. Carry it with grace. Carry it with humility. Carry it with the quiet dignity of someone who has lived fully, stumbled bravely, and risen again with love in their heart. You are still writing your story. Make this chapter one of courage, wisdom, and peace. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more soul-healing wisdom. Your journey is not over, it's just becoming deeper.